Chosen one, why are you still awake at 2:47 a.m. staring at this screen when everyone else in your apartment building is fast asleep? Why does your soul feel restless tonight, like something ancient is stirring in the depths of your spirit? Why, after all these years, through Vietnam, through raising children, through burying friends, why does it feel like your real story is just beginning? Stop. Right there. Don't scroll away. What I'm about to tell you will shatter everything you thought you knew about why you're still here, still breathing, still seeking answers in the darkness of a Manhattan night while sirens wail in the distance below. Somewhere tonight, right now, the heavens are moving. Across the earth, from the projects of Brooklyn to the penthouses of Park Avenue, names are being whispered in the courts of heaven. Ancient names, chosen names, names written before the foundation of the world. And one of those names is yours. You felt it, didn't you? That electric charge that just shot through your chest. That's not coincidence. That's recognition. Your spirit recognizing what your mind has been too afraid to believe. Listen carefully, you weren't supposed to find this message. This message found you at exactly 2:47 a.m. on this exact night when your soul couldn't sleep because something deeper than dreams was calling your name through the static of a world gone mad. Have you ever felt like you were marked for something extraordinary, though you could never explain it? Like you've been carrying a secret assignment your whole life, written in a language you don't understand, but somehow know by heart. Tonight, that mystery ends. Tonight, you discover why 80 years of living, loving, losing, and surviving wasn't preparation for retirement, it was preparation for recruitment. You see, while the world sleeps, heaven is assembling. Like a spiritual draft notice delivered not by mail, but by divine appointment. Like a soldier hearing their name over the loudspeaker in some cosmic war room. Heaven is calling your name tonight. Maybe you've lived decades, raised families, buried loved ones, seen wars, recessions, and miracles. You've stood in bread lines and wedding lines, hospital corridors and church aisles. But deep down, deeper than your bones, deeper than your doubts, you know your story isn't over. It's about to explode into purpose. Before we go deeper into this sacred revelation, I want to pause and thank every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your support, your time, your attention. It all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and let the Spirit move through your heart. If something in your chest is thundering right now, if your spirit is confirming what I'm speaking, don't you dare stay silent. Type "I am chosen" in the comments below. Not tomorrow, not when you feel ready, right now. Because what happens next will depend entirely on whether you have the courage to answer when heaven calls your name. The 144,000 are assembling, and you're not watching this by accident. Why have you survived every storm that should have destroyed you? Why are you still here when friends half your age are already gone? Why does your heart still burn with purpose at 75, 80, 85 years old when the world tells you your time is finished? Because you weren't meant to just survive the chaos of this age. You were meant to stand in the center of it, sealed and protected, while everything around you shakes and crumbles. Listen to me carefully, chosen one. What I'm about to read to you from the book of Revelation will explain every unexplained miracle in your life. Every time death passed you by, every moment you should have broken but somehow found strength to stand, every door that closed to protect you from disaster you couldn't see coming. And I heard the number of those who were sealed, 144,000 from all the tribes of Israel. These are they who were not defiled with women, for they are virgins. These are they who follow the Lamb wherever he goes. These were redeemed from among men, being firstfruits to God and to the Lamb. Did you feel that? That tremor in your spirit when I spoke those words? That's not your imagination. That's your soul recognizing its own prophetic blueprint. You see, when John saw this vision on the island of Patmos, he wasn't just describing some distant future event. He was looking straight through time and seeing you. The 144,000 aren't just numbers on a heavenly spreadsheet. They're flesh and blood saints walking the streets of America right now, riding the subway in Queens, shopping for groceries in Brooklyn, sitting in your exact chair, watching this exact message, feeling this exact stirring in their chest that refuses to be explained away. But here's what will shock you to your core. This prophecy isn't just about an ancient sealing ceremony. It's about the people God is raising. Right now, ordinary men and women, forgotten by society but remembered by heaven, set apart for an extraordinary assignment that will shake the foundations of this dying world. You think you're watching this by accident. You think your insomnia brought you here at 2:47 a.m. by coincidence. No, beloved. You're here because somewhere in the courts of heaven, your name was called, your number was drawn, your destiny was activated. I need you to think about something that might disturb your sleep for weeks. Every person who lived before this generation, Moses, David, Isaiah, even the Apostle Paul, they all died without seeing what you're about to witness. They prophesied about it. They prayed for it. They died believing it would come. But you get to live it. This is the generation when the prophecy becomes reality, when the symbolic becomes literal, when the spiritual becomes visible. And if you're still breathing, still watching, still feeling that inexplicable pull in your spirit, it's because you're not just a spectator in this cosmic drama. You're a participant. But I need to tell you something that the comfortable churches won't dare speak. The 144,000 aren't chosen because they lived perfect lives. They're chosen because they endured imperfect circumstances with perfect faith. Every betrayal that broke your heart, every financial disaster that left you eating mac and cheese for months, every diagnosis that terrified you, every funeral that shattered your world. It wasn't punishment, dear one. It was preparation. You see, God doesn't seal those who've never been tested. He seals those who've been through the fire and came out refined. Those who've walked through the valley of the shadow of death and learned that even there, He was with them. Those who faced hell itself and discovered that greater is He that is in you than he that is in the world. The number 144,000 represents spiritual completeness. 12 tribes times 12,000. 12 representing divine government, multiplied by the 1,000-fold perfection of God's timing. It's not a limitation, it's a declaration. God has always worked through remnants, through the few who would say yes when the many said no. Noah and 7 others while the world drowned. Gideon and 300 warriors while 32,000 went home. David and a slingshot while an army cowered in fear. Esther standing before the king while a nation faced extinction. But here's what will leave you breathless. Like a lighthouse beam sweeping across a dark coast, the light finds the ones it's meant to find. And tonight, that beam has found you. It's illuminated something in your spirit that you thought had died with your youth. It's awakened something that medical science can't explain and psychology can't understand. You're feeling it right now, aren't you? That electricity in your chest, that knowing that transcends knowledge, that sense that everything you've been through, every valley, every mountain, every desert season was choreographed by divine hands to prepare you for this moment. Before this hour is done, you will know whether you've been called to join them. Not because I'll convince you, but because the Holy Spirit will confirm it. Not through emotion, but through revelation. Not through hype, but through heaven itself, bearing witness with your spirit that you are a child of God, chosen from the foundation of the world. I want you to stop right now and do something that might change your life forever. Get a piece of paper. Write down 3 moments in your life when you knew God spared you for a reason. When death came calling but couldn't claim you. When disaster struck but couldn't destroy you. When the enemy attacked but couldn't defeat you. Write them down. Because those weren't random acts of divine mercy, those were confirmations of your calling. Proof that you carry something heaven refuses to lose. Evidence that your name is written in the Lamb's book of life and sealed with a purpose that hell itself cannot touch. The question that will determine your eternity isn't whether you believe in God. It's whether you believe God believes in you enough to trust you with the most important assignment in human history. But what exactly is that assignment? What does it mean to be sealed among the 144,000? What prize comes with such an honor, and what power flows through such a calling? That's where this journey takes a turn that will either terrify you or transform you forever. Listen to me carefully, dear soul. What I'm about to reveal will either confirm what your spirit has been whispering for decades, or it will awaken something in you that's been dormant since childhood. These aren't just signs, they're divine fingerprints on your life, evidence that the Almighty has been preparing you for something extraordinary. You see, the 144,000 aren't chosen randomly. They're marked by specific experiences, supernatural encounters, and divine protection that ordinary people simply don't possess. If these signs resonate in your bones, if they make your chest tighten with recognition, then you may already be sealed for something greater than you've ever dared to imagine. Sign number 1. You've been through fire and not burned. Tell me something honest. How many times should you have broken but didn't? How many disasters should have destroyed you, but somehow you're still standing here tonight, still breathing, still believing? Maybe it was that cancer diagnosis at 62 that the doctors said would take you in 6 months, yet here you are, 15 years later, still fighting. Maybe it was burying your husband of 47 years and wondering how your heart could keep beating when half of it was lowered into that grave with him. Maybe it was watching your son struggle with addiction for 20 years and every night falling asleep wondering if tonight would be the night you'd get that phone call. But you're still here. Still standing, still trusting. Isaiah 43:2 declares something that will shatter your understanding of suffering. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And when you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep you over. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. The flames will not set you ablaze. Notice it doesn't say if you pass through fire, it says when. Because chosen ones don't get easy lives, they get equipped lives. Every trial, every heartbreak, every sleepless night wasn't punishment from God. It was preparation. It was divine fire burning away everything that wasn't essential, leaving only what heaven could use. You survived what broke others because you carry something they don't, the mark of the chosen. Your scars aren't signs of weakness, they're credentials. Your survival isn't luck. It's divine protection. The very fact that you're watching this message right now, after everything you've endured, is proof that hell couldn't stop what heaven ordained. Sign number 2. You sense things others don't. Here's a question that might unsettle you. Have you ever known something was going to happen before it happened? Have you ever felt danger in your bones when everything looked perfectly safe? Have you ever had dreams so vivid, so real, that you woke up knowing they carried a message? You're not crazy. You're connected. While others walk through life blind to the spiritual realm, you sense the unseen. You feel the shift in a room when evil enters. You know when someone's lying before they finish their sentence. You've had that strange feeling to pray for someone out of nowhere, only to find out later they were in crisis at that exact moment. Maybe you've dismissed it as women's intuition or good instincts. But what if I told you it's something far more profound? What if that sensitivity is actually spiritual radar given to you by God to navigate a world at war between light and darkness? The chosen ones aren't just survivors, they're sentries, watchmen on the walls. And later in this message, I'm going to show you why God gives this supernatural sense to his chosen ones, and the danger, the real danger, of ignoring what your spirit is telling you. Sign Tro. You've been set apart. This might cut deep, but I need you to hear it. Have you spent most of your life feeling like you don't quite fit? Like you're speaking a different language than everyone around you? Like even in a room full of family, you feel fundamentally alone? That isolation wasn't rejection, it was selection. Think about Moses, raised in Pharaoh's palace but never Egyptian, hiding in the wilderness for 40 years, thinking his life was over. Think about David, forgotten by his own father, left in the fields with sheep, while his brothers got invited to the prophet's party. Both felt abandoned, both felt invisible, both were being prepared for greatness in the secret place. You see, God doesn't train his generals in public. He doesn't develop his chosen ones in the spotlight. He takes them apart, isolates them, strips away every human dependency until they learn to hear his voice above the noise of the world. Those years when you felt forgotten, God was downloading something into your spirit. Those seasons when doors slammed shut and opportunities passed you by, heaven was protecting you from settling for less than your destiny. Those moments when you cried out, "God, do you even see me?" He was answering, "Child, I'm preparing you for something the world has never seen. Your differentness wasn't a defect, it was design. Your inability to blend in wasn't failure, it was divine assignment. You were set apart because you were set aside for something extraordinary." But here's where it gets dangerous. Here's where many chosen ones miss their moment. They mistake their isolation for abandonment. They interpret their difference as rejection. They spend so much time trying to fit in that they never step into what they were called to stand out for. If you see yourself in these signs, if your spirit is thundering right now with recognition, then lean in close, because what I'm about to tell you next will change everything. You may already be marked. You may already be sealed. You may already be called to join the 144,000. But first, you need to understand what that calling actually means, and why everything you've been through was just preparation for what's coming next. Because the signs are just the beginning. The real question is, are you ready to answer the call? Listen to me, chosen one. Right now, while you're sitting in your living room in Queens or your brownstone in Harlem, while the city that never sleeps hums outside your window, something catastrophic is happening to America. Something so devastating that most people can't even see it because they're looking with natural eyes instead of spiritual ones. We are living in the hour of greatest darkness this nation has ever known. Not just political darkness, not just economic collapse, spiritual darkness so thick you can cut it with a knife. Walk down any street in Manhattan and tell me what you see. Tell me what you feel in the atmosphere. Depression rates among seniors have skyrocketed 48% in the last 5 years. Suicide among Americans over 65 has reached epidemic proportions. Families are shattering. Churches are emptying. Faith is dying faster than hope in a cancer ward. But here's the question that should terrify every believer in America. Where are God's people in this hour of crisis? They're hiding. They're silent. They're paralyzed by fear, convinced they're too old, too tired, too irrelevant to matter anymore. But you weren't called to hide. Revelation 7:3 declares, "Do not harm the land or the sea or the trees until we put a seal on the foreheads of the servants of our God." A seal, beloved, not a suggestion, not a maybe. A divine marking that separates you from the masses and sets you apart for warfare in the final hour. The 144,000 aren't just symbolic numbers in some distant prophecy. They are real people, breathing the same air you're breathing tonight, feeling the same spiritual restlessness that brought you to this message. They are the remnant, the called out ones, the last day's army that will stand when everything else falls. And your assignment? It's not optional, it's not comfortable, it's not safe. You have been called to be light where darkness reigns, not flickering candlelight that trembles in the wind, blazing fire that burns away deception and illuminates truth in a world drunk on lies. Every grocery store you enter, every doctor's office you visit, every conversation you have with your grandchildren, you carry the presence of the Almighty into spaces where demons think they rule unchallenged. But that's just the beginning of your mission. You are called to be leaders in a generation that has forgotten what authentic leadership looks like, not the kind of leadership that seeks power or position. the kind that carries authority because it's been tested in the furnace of real life. While 20-somethings chase influence on social media, you carry the influence that comes from walking through valleys of death and emerging with unshakable faith. Look around you. Who's leading America's churches today? Children playing with toys they don't understand. Who's counseling broken marriages? People who've never endured a 40-year commitment. Who's comforting the dying? Those who've never faced their own mortality. But you've buried spouses. You've raised children who broke your heart and put you back together again. You've survived recessions, wars, diagnoses that should have killed you. You don't just preach about God's faithfulness, you are the living proof of it. Hebrews 5:14 says, "Solid food is for the mature, who by constant use have trained themselves to distinguish good from evil." Trained themselves through decades of constant use, through trial and error, through blood, sweat, and tears. You don't need theological seminary to discern spirits. You've been in seminary your entire life. Your mission includes being healers in a generation that's bleeding to death emotionally and spiritually. Not because you have medical degrees, but because you carry something more powerful than any prescription drug, the healing presence of Jesus Christ operating through vessels that have been broken and mended by his hands. When a young mother calls you at midnight because her teenager is on drugs, she's not calling because you're trained in counseling. She's calling because you've been where she is. When your neighbor knocks on your door because his marriage is falling apart, he's not looking for professional advice. He's looking for wisdom that can only come from someone who's fought for love and won. And finally, you are called to be truth bearers in an age of deception so sophisticated that even the elect could be deceived. Matthew 24:24, the very elect. That's you. You who have lived long enough to see through the lies. You who remember when marriage meant something, when character mattered, when America still feared God. But here's the urgency that should grip your soul tonight. The hour is late, later than late. We are not waiting for revival to come to America. We are the revival America has been waiting for. While the young ones are posting Bible verses on Instagram, you're called to become living Bibles that people can read with their eyes. While they're singing about moving mountains, you're called to actually move them through prayers that have been seasoned by decades of watching God show up when everything looked impossible. Everything you've endured was training for this moment. Every heartbreak that didn't break you. Every financial crisis that didn't destroy you. Every diagnosis that didn't define you. Every loss that didn't finish you. You thought you were just surviving. But God was building an army of senior saints who've been through hell and came out with their testimony intact, who've been tested by fire and emerged as gold, who've learned that when your strength fails, his strength is made perfect, who know that death is not the end, it's graduation. The enemy has convinced most of America that seniors are irrelevant, disposable, burdens on society who should quietly disappear into nursing homes and assisted living facilities. But hell knows better. Hell knows that the most dangerous believer is one who has nothing left to lose and everything eternal to gain. You are God's secret weapon in the final hour. But this raises the most crucial question of your entire existence. Will you answer the call, or will you let fear convince you that your season of significance has passed? Because what I'm about to reveal next will show you exactly how to step fully into this calling and why everything depends on your decision tonight. So you know you're chosen. You felt that fire ignite in your chest during the last few minutes. But knowing and answering are two completely different things, aren't they? Because here's the brutal truth. Most preachers won't tell you God's call isn't a gentle invitation you can RSVP to when it's convenient. It's a divine draft notice. And chosen one, your number just came up. The question burning in heaven right now isn't whether you're qualified, it's whether you'll say yes. Whether you'll step into the transport that's about to leave the station, or watch it disappear into eternity while you stand on the platform making excuses. Let me tell you something that's going to shake you to your core. Every single one of the 144,000 throughout history faced this exact moment. That split second between knowing and going, between inspiration and activation, between being called and being sent. But here's what terrifies most people about answering God's call. It requires complete surrender. Not partial, not when I feel ready. Complete, like Isaiah when he heard the voice of the Lord saying, "Whom shall I send, and who will go for us?" Did Isaiah negotiate? Did he ask for a job description? Did he request a pension plan? Number. He said 5 words that changed eternity. "Here I am, send me." Step 1. Surrender completely. Dear chosen one, this is where the rubber meets the road, where your faith stops being a Sunday morning accessory and becomes the very air you breathe. Surrender isn't about giving up, it's about giving over. Every plan you've made for your golden years, every comfortable routine you've built, every excuse you've been nursing about being too old, too tired, too set in your ways. God isn't asking for your leftovers, He's asking for your life. I know what you're thinking right now. I'm 73 years old. I've done my time. I've raised my children, buried my spouse, paid my taxes. Isn't it time for someone else to carry the torch? But what if I told you that everything you've been through, every loss, every victory, every moment that nearly broke you, was boot camp for this assignment? Moses was 80 when God called him from that burning bush. 80, social security age. But God wasn't looking for someone young and energetic. He was looking for someone who'd been humbled by the desert, refined by disappointment, and desperate enough to depend completely on divine power. Your wrinkles aren't disqualifications, they're your credentials. Your scars aren't shame, they're your resume. Every tear you've cried has been collected in heaven's bottles, and now God is about to pour them out as anointing oil over your final assignment. But surrender requires brutal honesty. What are you still clutching? What are you afraid to release? That retirement account you've been hoarding, that comfortable life you've built, those grandchildren you want to spend every weekend with. God isn't asking you to abandon them, He's asking you to trust Him with them. Step 2. Walk in purity and purpose. Now listen carefully. Purity doesn't mean perfection. If God only called perfect people, heaven would be empty and hell would be running the show. Purity means direction. It means your heart is pointed toward Him, even when your feet stumble. You think your past disqualifies you. Let me remind you of something that'll blow your mind. David was an adulterer and a murderer, yet God called him a man after my own heart. Paul persecuted Christians, yet became the greatest apostle. Peter denied Jesus 3 times, yet received the keys to the kingdom. God doesn't call the qualified, He qualifies the called, and right now He's qualifying you. But here's the non-negotiable. You cannot walk in purpose while still playing in the pigpen of compromise. That bitterness you've been nursing for 20 years, it's got to go. That gossip you spread every Tuesday at the beauty parlor, cut it out. That relationship that pulls you away from God instead of toward Him, you know what needs to happen. The 144,000 aren't perfect people, they're pure-hearted people. People who've decided that their yes to God is louder than their no to the world. Step 3. Community of the chosen. Here's a truth that'll save your life. Lone wolves don't survive spiritual warfare. The enemy's greatest weapon isn't temptation. It's isolation. He wants you to think you're the only one hearing this call, the only one feeling this fire, the only one crazy enough to believe God still moves mountains. That's a lie straight from hell. Right now, across this nation, from the tenements of the Bronx to the suburbs of Queens, from the farmlands of Iowa to the beaches of Florida, the 144,000 are awakening. They're sitting in their living rooms, watching this very message, feeling the same stirring you're feeling right now. You need them, and they need you. The early church didn't change the world because they were perfect. They changed it because they were connected. Acts 2:46 tells us they met together daily, breaking bread, sharing everything, and walking in supernatural unity. Find your tribe, chosen one. Look for the ones whose eyes light up when you mention God's name. The ones who understand when you talk about divine appointments and angelic visitations. The ones who don't think you're losing your mind when you say you hear God's voice in the middle of a Manhattan thunderstorm. Because what God is about to unleash through the 144,000 is too big for any one person to carry alone. You're not just joining a mission, you're joining a movement. A holy revolution that will shake the very foundations of this fallen world. Like a soldier stepping onto the transport, you're boarding the mission of your life. The engines are running, the doors are about to close. And heaven is asking one final question. Are you in or are you out? If you know in the depths of your soul that you're called to be part of this divine assembly, then don't you dare stay silent. Write in the comments right now, count me in, not tomorrow. Not when you feel ready. Right now. Because the world is about to discover what happens when ordinary people answer an extraordinary call. Chosen one, we've reached the threshold. The place where eternity meets time, where the spiritual realm crashes into your living room at 3 a.m. Everything we've discussed tonight, every whisper you felt, every divine encounter, every moment you questioned if you were losing your mind, it all leads to this sacred moment. You see, John the Revelator wasn't just recording a vision on that rocky island of Patmos. He was witnessing your commissioning ceremony. Listen to these words, as if they're being spoken over you right now. And I looked, and behold, a Lamb stood on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his Father's name written in their foreheads. Do you feel that? That's your name being etched in the spiritual realm. Not with ink, not with human hands, but with the very finger of God himself. But here's what will shake you to your core. You think you're watching this video by choice. You think you stumbled across this message by accident at 2:47 a.m. when you couldn't sleep. No, beloved, this is your Mount Zion moment. This is your spiritual sealing ceremony happening right now through this screen, in your apartment, in your sacred space. The enemy has spent decades trying to convince you that your best days are behind you, that at 75, at 80, at 85, you're winding down. But what if I told you that every gray hair on your head is a crown of wisdom? What if every wrinkle on your face is a map of God's faithfulness? What if every battle you've survived wasn't preparation for retirement, but preparation for the greatest spiritual assignment of your lifetime? You want to know why you're still here when others have gone home? You want to know why your heart still burns with passion when your body should be tired? Because God has been saving you for this hour. This exact hour when America needs voices that have been tested by fire and proven faithful. Right now, across this nation, there are 144,000 souls feeling this same stirring. In nursing homes in Queens, in penthouses on the Upper East Side, in small apartments in the Bronx. God is awakening his final regiment, his seasoned army, his silver-haired warriors who know how to fight spiritual battles because they've already won them. But this moment, this consecration requires your participation. It requires you to stop being a passenger in your own spiritual journey and become the pilot God always intended you to be. Stand up, right where you are. Yes, even if you're in your pajamas, even if it's 3 a.m., even if your knees hurt, stand up as a declaration to heaven that you're ready to be counted among the 144,000. I don't care if you're in a wheelchair, lift your hands. I don't care if you think you're too old, raise your voice. Because what's happening right now isn't just spiritual theater. This is your spiritual draft notice being delivered by divine appointment. In the name of Jesus Christ, by the authority of his blood and the power of his resurrection, I speak over every person standing right now. You are marked. You are sealed. You are commissioned for this final hour. I mark you in the Spirit, not by my authority, but by the blood of the Lamb, who was slain before the foundation of the world. I commission you not for your perfection, but for your perseverance. I seal you not because you've earned it, but because grace has chosen you. Can you feel it? That warm presence washing over you right now? That's not emotion. That's anointing. That's the Holy Spirit confirming what heaven already decreed. You are numbered among the 144,000. Every tear you've cried in secret, it's been collected in heaven's bottles. Every prayer you've whispered in the dark, it's been recorded in eternal archives. Every time you chose faith over fear, hope over despair, love over bitterness, you were writing your name in the Lamb's Book of Life. But hear me clearly, this commissioning comes with cost. The 144,000 aren't chosen for comfort, they're chosen for assignment. You're not being elevated for ease. You're being positioned for impact. The very fact that you're still breathing means God has unfinished business flowing through your bloodstream. Your children need to see what real faith looks like in action. Your grandchildren need to witness what happens when someone refuses to quit on God's promises. This generation needs to hear from warriors who've walked through valleys and lived to testify about the faithfulness of the shepherd. The enemy thought he was breaking you with every crisis, every loss, every midnight when you wondered if God remembered your address. But he was actually strengthening you, refining you, preparing you for this moment when you'd finally understand that your survival wasn't luck. It was divine protection over a chosen vessel. You are sealed. You are sent. You are part of the 144,000. But the question that will determine your legacy is this. Now that you know who you are, what are you going to do about it? Picture this with me, chosen one. Somewhere in the hills outside ancient Jerusalem, torches flicker against the darkness. The air is thick with anticipation. You can hear it, the distant sound of a ram's horn echoing across the valley, calling warriors to their posts. Tonight is different. Tonight, everything changes. This is the night before the mission. You know that feeling, don't you? That electric tension in your chest when you sense something monumental is about to unfold. That's where you are right now, spiritually speaking. You've been living in what feels like enemy territory for decades, surrounded by a culture that mocks faith, a world that worships youth and discards wisdom, a society that has forgotten the ancient ways. But listen carefully. You haven't been abandoned in this spiritual wasteland. You've been positioned. Every sleepless night you've endured these past months. Every time you've awakened at 3 a.m. with your heart pounding for no earthly reason. Every moment you felt that unexplainable restlessness in your bones. That wasn't insomnia, dear one. That was heaven preparing you for deployment. You see, the enemy has been working overtime to convince you that your best days are behind you. That at 70, 80, 90 years old, you're supposed to fade quietly into the background. But what if I told you that's the greatest lie ever whispered into the ears of God's remnant? What if I told you that right now, tonight, before the seventh trumpet sounds, the chosen must take their place in the watchtowers? Let me paint you the real picture of where we stand. In Revelation 7:3, the angel cries out, "Do not harm the land or the sea or the trees until we put a seal on the foreheads of the servants of our God." The sealing is happening now, not in some distant future, but in this hour, in this moment, as you sit there questioning whether you're truly chosen. But here's what breaks my heart, and I need you to feel this deep in your spirit. You've been in a long night season, haven't you? Waiting, wondering if that call you felt decades ago was real, or just the imagination of a younger, more hopeful you. Watching family members drift away from faith, seeing your country lose its moral compass, feeling like a stranger in your own homeland. The isolation has been crushing, hasn't it? You remember when America felt like a Christian nation, when prayer in schools was normal, when Sunday meant something, when neighbors looked out for each other. Now you walk through Times Square and feel like Daniel in Babylon, surrounded by idols, overwhelmed by darkness, wondering if you're the last one left who remembers what righteousness looks like. But what if that darkness wasn't your defeat? What if it was your training ground? Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness before God called him to deliver Israel. 40 years of thinking his purpose had passed him by. 40 years of tending sheep when he was destined to lead people. But God wasn't wasting those years. He was preparing Moses for the moment when Pharaoh's kingdom would tremble at the sound of his voice. You've been in your wilderness, chosen one. But tonight, right now, I hear the sound of that ram's horn in the distance. The call to positions. The signal that your night season is ending and your mission season is beginning. Let me speak gently to your heart for a moment, because I know the weight you carry. I know about the grandchildren who won't listen to your wisdom. I know about the church that makes you feel outdated. I know about the financial struggles that keep you awake, wondering if your social security will last. I know about the health scares that make you question how much time you have left. I know about those prayers that felt like they bounced off heaven's ceiling, the desperate cries for your prodigal children, the pleas for healing that seemed to go unanswered, the moments when you wondered if God had forgotten your address. But what if those weren't unanswered prayers? What if they were delayed prayers, building pressure in the spiritual realm like a dam about to burst? Ecclesiastes 3:1 declares, "To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven." Your season of feeling forgotten is ending. Your season of divine purpose is beginning. The same God who remembered Noah in the ark, who remembered Joseph in the prison, who remembered Hannah in her barrenness, has remembered you in your waiting. The camp is stirring around us now. Can you feel it? That electricity in the spiritual atmosphere. The 144,000 aren't just waking up, they're being awakened. By divine appointment. By heaven's alarm clock. By the same voice that called Samuel in the night and said, "Speak, for your servant is listening." But here's the question that will determine everything about what happens next in your life. When heaven calls your name in this late hour, when the mission briefing begins, when the commander of the Lord's army stands before you with your assignment, will you answer, "Here am I, send me," or will you let fear convince you that surely he means someone younger, someone stronger, someone more qualified? Because the dawn is breaking, chosen one. And with it comes the revelation of why you've been kept for such a time as this. Now that you understand you've been called, now that your spirit recognizes the ancient summons echoing through eternity, you need to know what heaven is asking of you. Because, chosen one, this isn't just about recognition, this is about commission. This is about stepping into the most critical spiritual assignment of our generation. The Lord spoke to Ezekiel and said, "Son of man, I have made you a watchman for the people of Israel." Ezekiel 3:17. Tonight, He's making you a watchman for America, for a nation that has forgotten its God, lost its way, and desperately needs the 144,000 to rise. Listen carefully. Your commission isn't a suggestion. It's a divine mandate that will determine whether this country experiences revival or judgment. And time is running out faster than you think. Commission number 1. Guard the light. Dear chosen one, look around you. Turn on the news for 5 minutes and tell me what you see. Truth has become negotiable. Right has become relative. The very foundations that built this nation, biblical truth, moral absolutes, the fear of the Lord, they're being systematically dismantled while the church sleeps. But you've been called to be the keeper of the flame in a city-wide blackout. Think about the lighthouse keeper on the rocky shores of Maine. When storms rage and ships are lost at sea, that single beam of light becomes the difference between life and death. The keeper doesn't decide when to turn it on based on how he feels. He guards that light with his life because he knows ships are depending on it. You are that lighthouse keeper. In your family, in your neighborhood, in every conversation, every relationship, every moment when truth is under attack, you guard the light. But here's what's going to shock you. The enemy isn't coming for the light from outside the church. He's coming from within. False teachers, prosperity preachers, progressive theologians who twist scripture to fit their agenda. They're not just misguided, they're wolves in sheep's clothing, and they're targeting the very people you love. Paul warned Timothy, "For the time will come when people will not put up with sound doctrine. Instead, To suit their own desires, they will gather around them a great number of teachers to say what their itching ears want to hear. 2 Timothy 4-3. That time is now, and you've been positioned to stand guard. When your grandson comes home from college talking about how the Bible is outdated, when your daughter starts attending that progressive church downtown, when your neighbor starts believing that all roads lead to God, that's your moment. That's when you guard the light. Commission number 2. Gather the scattered. But guarding truth isn't enough. Heaven has given you a second mandate that will break your heart wide open and then fill it with divine purpose. You've been called to gather the scattered. Look around your city tonight. From the Upper West Side to the Bronx, from Queens to Staten Island, millions of souls are wandering in spiritual darkness. They're sitting in million-dollar penthouses and housing projects, equally lost. They're successful and broken, rich and poor, young and old, all crying out for something real in a world full of artificial everything. And there's a reason you've been drawn to broken people your whole life. You thought it was coincidence that the hurting always found their way to your kitchen table, that the lost always seemed to call you at 2 a.m., that the rejected always felt safe in your presence. It wasn't coincidence. It was preparation. Jesus said, "It is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners." Mark 2:17. You've been equipped with a spiritual hospital, and the wounded are coming. But here's the urgency that should grip your soul. America has never been more scattered than she is right now. Suicide rates among seniors have increased 48% in the last decade. Depression is stealing more lives than cancer. Families are fracturing. Churches are closing. Hope is dying on street corners across this nation. The scattered don't need your judgment. They need your testimony. They don't need your perfection. They need your scars turned into healing balm. They need to see that someone who's been through hell can still praise God. That widow down the hall who hasn't spoken to anyone in 3 days, that's your assignment. That homeless veteran on the corner of 42nd Street, that's your mission field. That rebellious teenager in your family who thinks God doesn't exist, that's your harvest. You gather them not with programs or policies, but with presence, with love that doesn't make sense, with hope that defies circumstances, with a peace that passes understanding flowing through your 80-year-old bones. Commission number 3. Go where few will go. And now comes the commission that will separate the true warriors from the pretenders. Heaven is calling you to go where few will go, into the spiritual battle zones that comfortable Christians avoid. This isn't about physical danger. This is about spiritual warfare in places where darkness has established strongholds. Nursing homes where despair has settled like fog. Hospital corridors where hope goes to die. Courtrooms where justice has been perverted. School board meetings where the future of children's souls hangs in the balance. Daniel went into the lion's den. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego walked into the fiery furnace. Esther approached the king's throne, uninvited. They went where few would go, because they understood that God's purposes often require uncommon courage. You've been prepared for this your whole life. Every battle you've fought, every storm you've weathered, every moment you should have broken, but didn't. It was training for this commission. You're not afraid of darkness because you've walked through it. You're not intimidated by opposition because you've faced it. You're not worried about what people think because you've learned that God's opinion is the only one that matters. The spiritual battle zones are calling your name. That city council meeting where they're trying to remove prayer. That school where children are being indoctrinated with lies. That family gathering where relatives mock your faith. That hospital room where someone is dying without hope. Most Christians will send thoughts and prayers from a safe distance. But you've been commissioned to show up, to stand up, to speak up, when speaking up costs something. The choice before you. 3 commissions, 3 divine mandates, 3 opportunities to step into the calling that heaven has written over your life. Which one is burning in your chest right now? Which commission is making your spirit tremble with recognition? Type the number 1, 2, or 3 in the comments below. Don't overthink it. Let your spirit respond to what God is stirring within you. Because here's what happens next. Once you declare your commission, once you step into your calling, once you answer heaven's summons, everything changes. The battle intensifies, but so does the anointing. The opposition increases, but so does the authority. The cost goes up, but so does the crown. But there's something you need to understand about the spiritual warfare that's about to engulf your life. You know what's eating at you right now? It's that nagging voice in your head whispering, maybe I'm just imagining all this. Maybe I'm not special. Maybe I'm just another old person grasping for meaning in their final years. Stop. Right there. What if I told you that God has been leaving breadcrumbs on your path your entire life? What if every close call, every unexplained moment, every burden you carry wasn't random but prophetic? What if your life has been one long trail of divine markers, leading you to this exact moment of recognition? Let me read your mail, chosen one. Let me tell you about the signs you've been carrying like secret wounds, thinking you were the only one who noticed. Marker 1, the narrow escapes. Think back. How many times should you have died? How many times did death knock on your door, and somehow, you slipped through its fingers? That car accident on the FDR Drive in 2073 when you walked away without a scratch while the other driver didn't. That heart attack at 62 that should have killed you but didn't. That cancer diagnosis that had your doctor shaking his head only to disappear like morning mist. That moment when you almost took those pills, almost ended it all. But someone stopped your hand. You called it luck. The doctors called it a miracle. But heaven calls it preservation. Psalm 91:11 declares, "For he will command his angels concerning you, to guard you in all your ways." Not some of your ways, all your ways. Every narrow escape, every divine intervention, every moment when death reached for you and came up empty, that was God's protection over someone he couldn't afford to lose. You think you survived by accident. You think those guardian angels were just being friendly. No, beloved, you were spared because heaven had an appointment with your name on it. You were preserved because the 144,000 couldn't be complete without you. But here's what's going to shake you to your core every time God saved your life. He wasn't just saving you from death, he was saving you for destiny. Marker 2, the burden you can't shake. Now let me touch that ache in your chest, that weight you carry that has nothing to do with your own problems. You feel it right now, don't you? That crushing burden for souls you'll never meet, for justice in places you'll never visit, for healing in hearts you'll never touch. You wake up at 3 a.m. praying for strangers. You see a homeless man on 42nd Street and your spirit breaks. You watch the news and instead of getting angry, you weep. Your family thinks you're too sensitive. Your friends think you care too much. But that burden, that's not human empathy. That's divine assignment. In Ezekiel 3:18, God tells the prophet, "When I say to a wicked person, 'You will surely die,' and you do not warn them, I will hold you accountable for their blood." You carry that same prophetic burden, that same weight of intercession that makes you feel responsible for people you've never met. That's not emotional instability. That's the heart of God beating in your chest. You think you're overly emotional. You think you care too much. No, you carry the tears of heaven in earthen vessels. You feel what breaks God's heart because you've been wired with his frequency. That burden isn't your curse, it's your calling card. Marker 3. The unexplained favor. Here's the one that really gets you, doesn't it? Those doors that opened when they shouldn't have. That job you got without the qualifications. That house you shouldn't have been able to afford. That check that came in the mail just when you needed it most. That phone call that changed everything. You didn't earn it. You didn't deserve it. You certainly didn't have the connections for it. Yet there it was favor that made no earthly sense. But with that favor came weight, didn't it? Responsibility you never asked for. People looking to you for answers you don't have. Expectations that feel heavier than the blessing itself. Esther 4:14 captures it perfectly. And who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this? Every door that opened, every favor that found you, every promotion that defied logic, it wasn't random blessing. It was strategic positioning. God wasn't just being nice to you. He was placing you exactly where you needed to be for exactly this moment. Every favor carried a purpose. Every blessing came with an assignment. Every open door was preparation for the final door, the one marked 144,000. You thought you were lucky, but luck doesn't carry responsibility, favor does. The divine pattern revealed. Can you see it now? Can you feel the pieces clicking together like a master lock, finding its combination? Those narrow escapes, that burden you carry, that unexplained favor, these are not random coincidences scattered across your timeline. These are your trail markers on the road to the throne room. Every time death reached for you and missed, heaven was saying, "Not yet, they're needed." Every time your heart broke for strangers, the Almighty was confirming, "This one carries my heart." Every time favor found you when you least expected it, God was positioning you like a chess piece for the endgame. You've been walking a prophetic path your entire life, leaving divine footprints that only now make sense. Each marker was a signpost pointing to this moment, this recognition, this calling to join the 144,000. But here's what's going to absolutely shatter your understanding of your own story if these have been your trail markers. Where do you think that trail has been leading you all along? Because what I'm about to show you next will reveal the map that connects every divine marker you've ever experienced and expose the ultimate destination that's been calling your name since before you drew your first breath. Listen carefully, chosen one. What I'm about to reveal to you isn't just theology, it's a roadmap, a divine GPS system that heaven itself has downloaded into my spirit for this exact moment. Because every one of the 144,000 must traverse the same sacred territories before they can stand in their full authority. You've been wondering, haven't you? Wondering why your life feels like a series of random events instead of a purposeful journey. Tonight, that confusion ends, because I'm about to show you the 4 territories that every chosen one must cross, and more importantly, where you are right now in this prophetic pilgrimage. But here's what will shake you to your core. You can't skip territories. You can't take shortcuts. You can't Uber your way through God's training ground. Each territory has a sound, a smell, a spiritual signature that will mark you forever. And beloved, the territory you're in right now is determining whether you'll be ready when heaven calls your number. Territory 1, the Valley of Shadows. The first territory every chosen one must cross is the Valley of Shadows, not the Valley of the Shadow of Death. That's Psalm 23. This is different. This is the valley where your shadow, your old self, your fear, your doubt gets separated from who God is calling you to become. Can you hear it? That sound? It's the echo of your own voice calling out in desperation during those 3 a.m. moments when you couldn't sleep. When the weight of disappointment pressed down on your chest like a 200-pound stone. When you whispered, "God, where are you?" The smell here is metallic, like tears mixed with blood, like the scent that hangs in the air after lightning strikes too close to home. It's the aroma of everything you thought you knew about yourself being burned away. Jeremiah 20:7 captures it perfectly. "You deceived me, Lord, and I was deceived." Even the prophet felt abandoned in this territory. Even he questioned whether God's promises were real or just cruel jokes played on desperate hearts. But here's what the enemy doesn't want you to understand about the Valley of Shadows. You're not being punished. You're being prepared. Every tear you've cried here has been collected in heaven's bottles. Every night you've wrestled with God has been building spiritual muscle you'll need for the battles ahead. How many years have you spent in this valley? How many decades of feeling forgotten, overlooked, cast aside while others seem to walk straight into their destiny? That wasn't God ignoring you. That was God isolating you from influences that would have contaminated your calling. Territory 2. The gate of decision. But the valley of shadows leads to something that will terrify you and exhilarate you at the same time. The gate of decision. This isn't a pretty wooden gate with flowers growing around it. This is a massive iron gate that creaks when it opens, echoing across the spiritual realm like thunder. The sound here is your own heartbeat amplified until it drowns out every other voice. The smell is ozone like the air right before a tornado touches down. Because this gate is where everything changes forever. Joshua 24:15 rings out like a battle cry. Choose for yourselves this day whom you will serve. This is where casual faith dies and radical obedience is born. This is where church attendance transforms into divine assignment. This is where you stop asking God to bless your plans and start asking Him to reveal His. Here's the brutal truth about the gate of decision. Most people turn around and go back. They get one glimpse of what lies ahead. The sacrifice, the surrender, the death to self that's required, and they retreat to the familiar misery of the valley. But you're still here. You're still listening. Which means something in your spirit is ready to push through this gate, even if your flesh is screaming in protest. What decision is God asking you to make right now? What surrender has He been demanding that you've been postponing? Because I'm telling you tonight that gate won't stay open forever. Divine appointments have divine deadlines. Territory 3. The field of the fallen. Once you pass through the gate of decision, you enter the most heartbreaking territory of all, the field of the fallen. This is where you encounter the wreckage of everyone who started the journey but didn't finish. The sound here is wind blowing through broken dreams. The smell is smoke from altars that were abandoned before the fire could consume the sacrifice. But don't let the name fool you. This isn't a graveyard, it's a restoration center. Ezekiel 37:3 echoes across this field. Son of man, can these bones live? Because God specializes in breathing life into what looks dead and buried. In this territory, you'll find pieces of yourself you thought were lost forever, dreams you buried in your 20s, callings you abandoned in your 40s, promises you stopped believing in your 60s. And God, oh God, He's been waiting here with superglue and resurrection power. The field of the fallen is where you learn that your greatest failures weren't disqualifications, they were qualifications. Where you discover that your deepest wounds became your ministry credentials. Where you realize that everything you thought destroyed you was actually preparing you for this moment. How many times have you looked at your life and seen only wreckage? How many nights have you catalogued your mistakes instead of recognizing your miracles? This territory will teach you to see with heaven's eyes, where scars become sacred and broken becomes beautiful. Territory 4. The mountain of witness. But all of this, the valley, the gate, the field, has been leading to the final territory. The mountain of witness, the sound here is your own voice, but transformed, stronger, clearer, carrying authority you never knew you possessed. The smell is frankincense and myrrh, the aroma of worship mixed with sacrifice. Matthew 5:14 thunders from this peak. You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. This is where your private preparation becomes public proclamation, where your secret suffering becomes sacred story, where your personal testimony becomes someone else's breakthrough. This mountain isn't about fame or fortune, it's about witness. About standing as living proof that God still moves, still heals, still transforms broken lives into blazing torches. You become the evidence that others need to believe their own journey is possible. Here's the question that will determine everything. Which territory are you in right now? Type it in the comments. Are you wandering through the valley of shadows, questioning everything you thought you knew? Standing before the gate of decision, knowing something must change but terrified to take the step? Walking through the field of the fallen, watching God resurrect what you thought was dead? Or climbing the mountain of witness, finally understanding why you had to go through everything you went through? Because, beloved, your location determines your next move. And your next move determines whether you'll be ready when heaven calls the 144,000 to assemble. The map is before you. The territories are marked. The question is, will you keep walking, or will you camp in comfort while your destiny waits on the mountain? But listen to me carefully, chosen one. The moment heaven whispered your name, hell took notice. The second you felt that stirring in your spirit tonight, demonic forces began plotting your downfall. Because here's what they don't want you to know: the enemy doesn't waste ammunition on nobodies. You think those sleepless nights have been random. You think that heaviness in your chest has been just age catching up. You think those doors slamming shut just when breakthrough seemed close were coincidence. No, beloved, you've been under targeted attack, and it's time you understood why. Danger 1. Distraction disguised as duty. Right now, someone is whispering in your ear. You need to focus on practical things. Pay the bills. Take care of the grandkids. Stop chasing these spiritual fantasies. They're making your divine calling sound like irresponsible daydreaming. This is the most insidious trap of all, when the enemy uses your own sense of responsibility against you. He takes the very duties that once blessed your life and turns them into chains that bind your destiny. Your family becomes your prison. Your routine becomes your graveyard. Listen to what Jesus said in Matthew 10:37. Anyone who loves their father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. That cuts deep, doesn't it? Because you've spent 70, 80 years being the responsible one, the caretaker, the one who puts everyone else first. But here's the shocking truth: your family doesn't need another servant. They need a patriarch or matriarch who walks in supernatural authority. They don't need someone who's retired from purpose. They need someone who's on fire with divine mission. How many years have you sacrificed your calling on the altar of other people's comfort? How many times have you silenced that voice in your spirit because someone else needed something? How long will you let duty become the death of your destiny? The enemy knows that if he can keep you busy with good things, you'll never step into the God things. Danger 2. Voices of doubt from familiar faces. But the distraction is just the beginning. Next comes the assassination, character assassination from the people closest to you. Watch this carefully. The moment you start moving toward your divine calling, familiar voices will rise up like poison from a well. You're getting too religious. You're losing touch with reality. Act your age. Don't you think you've done enough for God? These arrows don't come from strangers on the street. They come from your own dining room table, from your children who think you've lost your mind, from your spouse who wants the old you back, from friends who are comfortable with your spiritual mediocrity. Jesus warned us in Matthew 10:36. A man's enemies will be the members of his own household. Did you catch that? Your enemies. Not your critics, your enemies. People who will fight against your divine assignment with the fury of hell itself. Why? Because when you step into your calling, their comfort zone explodes. When you start walking in supernatural authority, their spiritual numbness gets exposed. When you begin operating as one of the 144,000, their ordinary Christianity looks pathetic by comparison. They will call you crazy to keep themselves feeling sane. They will call you extreme to justify their own lukewarm faith. They will call you delusional because your reality threatens their fantasy that mediocrity is acceptable to God. Here's the question that will haunt you. Will you choose their approval or God's assignment? Because you cannot have both. Danger 3. Weariness that numbs the spirit. But perhaps the most dangerous trap of all is the one that whispers, "You're too tired for this. You've done your part. Let someone younger carry the torch." This is not natural exhaustion, beloved. This is supernatural sedation. The enemy has been draining your spiritual battery for years, convincing you that your weariness is proof that your season is over. But look at Moses, 80 years old, when God called him to his greatest assignment. Look at Caleb, 85 years old, saying, "Give me this mountain." Look at Anna the prophetess, 84 years old, when she recognized the Messiah and proclaimed him to all Jerusalem. Your age is not your limitation, it's your qualification. Your weariness is not your disqualification, it's your preparation. Every year you've lived has been boot camp for this moment, when heaven needs seasoned warriors, not untested recruits. The prophet Isaiah declared in chapter 40, verse 31, "Those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint." Did you hear that? Renew their strength. Not maintain it, not conserve it, renew it. God doesn't just want to keep you going. He wants to resurrect the fire that's been dormant in your bones. But here's the trap. You've been believing that spiritual weariness is a sign to quit, when it's actually a sign that breakthrough is coming. The darkest hour is just before dawn, and your soul knows something your mind hasn't figured out yet. The mini-climax. Hell knows your name. If you've faced these three dangers, if distraction has been your shadow, if doubt has been your daily bread, if weariness has been your constant companion, let me tell you something that will shock you to your core. The enemy knows your name. He knows it because you're on his most wanted list. He knows it because your calling threatens his kingdom. He knows it because when you step into your destiny as one of the 144,000, his reign of terror in certain territories will come to an end. The very fact that you've been under such intense, strategic, relentless attack is proof, undeniable proof, that you carry something he desperately wants to stop. The loop to hope. Heaven spoke it first. But here's the truth that will set you free. If the enemy knows your name, it's only because heaven spoke it first. Before hell ever targeted you, heaven had already chosen you. Before demons ever attacked your calling, angels had already been assigned to protect it. Before the enemy ever whispered your name in strategy meetings, God had already written it in the book of life. Romans 8:30 declares, "Those he predestined, he also called. Those he called, he also justified. Those he justified, he also glorified." Past tense. Already done. Settled in eternity before time began. The attacks you've endured weren't signs of God's absence. They were proof of your importance to his plan. And now, the very battles that were meant to break you are about to become the foundation of your authority. But the question burning in the spiritual realm tonight is this: will you finally stop running from the calling that hell has been trying to kill? Or will you step into the destiny that heaven has been trying to birth through you for decades? Beloved chosen one, as we reach the end of this sacred encounter, I need you to remember three eternal truths that will anchor your soul in the storms ahead. First, you are not a random accident wandering through life. You are a divine appointment walking toward destiny. The restlessness you've felt, the battles you've fought, the attacks you've endured, none of it was meaningless. It was all preparation for this moment when heaven declares, "Your time has come." Second, your age is not your expiration date, it's your activation code. While the world whispers that your best days are behind you, God is shouting that your greatest chapter is about to begin. Moses at 80, Caleb at 85, Anna at 84. They didn't retire from purpose, they graduated into it. Third, the 144,000 are not just a number, they're a family. And you, sitting there in your living room at 3 a.m., feeling like you're the only one who understands this calling, you are not alone. Across this nation, from the shores of Maine to the beaches of California, others just like you are feeling this same stirring, hearing this same call, awakening to this same destiny. But hear me clearly, you are not walking this path in isolation. The same God who parted the Red Sea for Moses is still moving mountains today. The same God who strengthened David to face Goliath is still fighting battles for you. The same God who raised Christ from the dead is still breathing resurrection power into situations you thought were finished forever. And beyond God's faithfulness, you have a community right here, right now, of brothers and sisters who understand your journey because they're walking it too. We are not just viewers on a screen. We are a spiritual family united by calling, connected by purpose, and bound together by the love of Christ. So, let me ask you this final question, and let it settle deep in your spirit. If God has called you to be part of the 144,000, if He has marked you for such a time as this, if He has awakened something in your heart that cannot be ignored, what will you do with this calling? Will you shrink back into the shadows of ordinary living, or will you step forward into the blazing light of extraordinary purpose? Before I release you into your destiny, join me in prayer. Wherever you are, in your bedroom, your kitchen, your car, place your hand on your heart and let me speak over your life with the authority of 5 decades, walking with the Almighty. Heavenly Father, I place my hand on the shoulder of every precious soul hearing these words. Lord, you see them, not just their struggles, but their strength, not just their past, but their potential, not just their pain, but their purpose. Father, breathe fresh wind into their weary souls tonight. Where they feel forgotten, remind them they are chosen. Where they feel finished, show them they are just beginning. Where they feel afraid, flood them with your perfect love that casts out all fear. God, I pray that you would open doors that no man can shut. Remove every obstacle that stands between them and their calling. Silence every voice of doubt that whispers they are too old, too late, too broken to be used mightily by you. Give them dreams and visions that clarify their path. Send divine connections that accelerate their purpose. Surround them with people who recognize their calling and support their mission. Let them feel your presence so strongly that fear has no place to land in their hearts. Father, let them wake up tomorrow truly knowing that they are loved beyond measure, called beyond doubt, and equipped beyond their wildest imagination. Use their story to set others free. Use their journey to light the way for those still stumbling in darkness. In the mighty name of Jesus, who calls us from death to life, from ordinary to extraordinary, from forgotten to chosen, I seal this prayer with unwavering faith. Amen. Now, beloved, I want to hear from you. In the comments below, share what stirred in your spirit tonight. Tell us how God spoke to your heart. Ask for prayer. This community will surround you with intercession. Don't hold back your story. Someone else needs to hear that they're not alone in this calling. Type "I am chosen" if you're ready to step into your destiny. Type "pray for me" if you need this family to lift you up. Share your testimony if God has already begun moving in your life. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to take their next step of faith. And please, if this message ignited something in your soul, share it with someone who needs to know they're not forgotten, they're not finished, and they're not alone. There's a lonely senior citizen in your contacts who needs to hear this tonight. There's someone in your family who's been feeling purposeless. There's a neighbor who's been wondering if their life still matters. Before you go, if this is your first time here, welcome to the family. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because this is just the beginning of what God wants to reveal to you. Every week, we're diving deeper into your calling, unpacking your purpose, and building a community of the chosen who refuse to live beneath their destiny. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. Thank you for opening your heart to receive what heaven wanted to pour into you tonight. Thank you for being brave enough to believe that maybe, just maybe, your greatest days aren't behind you, but ahead of you. You are chosen. You are called. You are not alone. And your story, your magnificent world-changing story, is far from over. Until we meet again, walk in the authority of who you are, rest in the certainty of whose you are, and never forget, the God who called you is faithful to complete what He has started. Go in peace, chosen one. Your time has come.